Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I am Kristen Boyce, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a private practice, Pathways to Healing Counseling. Through conversations, education, strategies, and shared stories, we will be closing the chapter on all the thoughts, feelings, people, and circumstances that don't serve you anymore and open the door to possibilities and the real you. You won't want to miss an episode, so be sure to subscribe. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am so grateful you're here. Can I just acknowledge the work that you're doing? The fact that you're listening to this podcast or you shared it with someone in your life shows that you are wanting to open, grow, evolve, heal the past so you can live more fully in the present. And I am just so grateful for you sharing the podcast, listening, and being here. Every time you listen and share it, we're helping other people. So I'm really on a mission to help as many people as we can get themselves back, be able to expand their thinking. And I hope this podcast does that for you and your loved ones and your friends and family, coworkers, whoever you're sharing this with. Thank you so much. And today's episode is really important because I've had Brownwyn on before as a guest, and I replayed one of her episodes recently on anger. And this episode is particularly important because we all struggle with shame and not feeling good enough and struggling with self-worth and value and whether we matter and what people think of us. All of that plays into how you show up and feel in the world and in your relationships with your kids, with your friends, with your romantic partners. It all ties together. And we're going to be looking at how shame and anger interact with each other and the role it plays and how to work through it and get to the other side. Because it's the most important work you'll do is to work on your shame and your reactivity. And anger can actually be adaptive. When is it maladaptive? When is it adaptive? And this is such a good episode for all of the things. So just telling you a little bit more about Bronwyn, she's LMFT, which is what I am, which is a licensed marriage and family therapist in private practice, and she's an anger expert. She helps her clients and podcast listeners come back to life through integrating with their inner child, dislodging shame. Think about that. Don't we all want to dislodge shame? And healing their relationship with anger. She is the founder of the Center for Anger and Integration, where she provides CE trainings for other therapists. Her podcast is Angry at the Right Things. And she really gives you permission to show you that anger helps you set boundaries and helps you get back to yourself. So we go through critical questions to ask yourself what self-attachment looks like, because we talk about attachment theory and what we need to be doing with that. So grab the free journal that I offer at Kristen, Kristen, Boyce, BOICE.com/free resources. We're linking everything in the show notes. So thank you for listening. And here is a wonderful conversation with Brownwyn. Play it again if you need to. Grab your notebook and pen and hope it really helps shift something in your thought process and how you feel about yourself. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am so excited to have a return guest, a very popular guest. Brownwyn is joining us again. Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for having me again.
It's so good to see you. And last time we talked a lot about anger, and that really resonated with so many of the listeners because they struggle with anger and that emotion and feeling guilty or feeling out of control based on their childhood.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd pick up and dive even deeper than we did last time. Talk to me about how you see anger in relationships.
Yeah, I love that you just said a lot of people feel guilty. I don't love that a lot of people feel guilty, but I love that you're naming that. That is very true. And then the other thing you said was out of control. And I think those are important to kind of unpack. So not all anger is healthy anger, though. I want to say that first and foremost. There is healthy anger. And I think most of us who feel guilty or even out of control have the healthy anger. But there is what I call reactive anger as well. And let me just share a little bit about that. So reactive anger comes from shame. So if I am triggered, that's what shame is. Shame is feeling triggered. If I'm triggered, and I'll be honest, my biggest trigger historically has been when someone doesn't give me eye contact when I'm talking to them. So that is my trigger. That came from probably age 3 specifically, but it's my responsibility because it is my trigger. So you can say it is objectively rude not to make eye contact with someone when they're talking, but I'm responsible for my trigger. So when I get angry, I need to remind myself, okay, this is my anger. I'm responsible for my trigger, not this person. And so I need to do the work on my end, and I will not unleash my anger at them. And I've done that work. It's a lot easier now, but it's not perfect. So I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, I was at a restaurant and it was a nice restaurant, and the hostess comes up to the podium or whatever. She makes no eye contact and she's like looking kind of away and she's talking to us. And I was super triggered. But you know what I did in that moment? I told myself, over and over, I said, Bronwyn, that's her shame, not yours. That's her shame, not yours. Meaning that obviously she has some issue with making eye contact. Her job is to make eye contact. And for whatever reason, she's limited. So not taking that personally and just going, that's her own shame. You're not shameful. She is not reflecting something true about you. So I really needed to do that for myself. And that allowed me to actually be very kind to her and respectful, which in the past, I'm going to be honest, I've been kind of rude when people are rude to me. So that's reactive anger.
Okay, so let's take this example because this is what I hear the most. And it's true for me, like not feeling heard. For example, if you say something like, I say something like, we're going to go here tomorrow at 5, I'm making this up, to a restaurant. And they're like, well, you never told me that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, I did. And it goes back to childhood. So I know where the roots are. Let's say someone doesn't feel heard, because I see it with couples all the time. That's one of their triggers, and they get mad. They get reactive. Where do we start with that?
Well, I wouldn't call that necessarily reactive though now, because when it's a hostess, it's a stranger. She's not betraying me. I don't have much of an expectation of her. She's not someone I've allowed into my life and been vulnerable with like a partner.
So there's a distinction. So you don't know her. There's a distinction between reactive anger. Now there's going to be something different when you're in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah. So what I will say, I've been married many years. And so I have definitely brought my own reactive anger from my childhood, not feeling heard, into my marriage. So that is my trigger. That's my reactive anger. And my husband isn't a great listener. He's learned to be, but he wasn't for many years. And so I have legitimate, valid anger because that is his job description as my partner, is to hear me. So there's both.
And also, I love it. And also, and in both. Okay. So if someone has reactive anger, we all do, right? Is this universal? Like everybody has reactive anger?
Yes.
Okay. What are the other types of anger? And then how do we work through reactive anger? Maybe we start there.
Yeah, I think there's just reactive anger, which again, I'm going to call unhealthy anger. It is valid because we really did have shame earlier in our life that we haven't dealt with, but it doesn't belong necessarily in this environment right now where I'm being triggered. It comes from somewhere else and it's being evoked. It's not all bad, but it is disproportionate to what's happening in the moment. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So you're at the hostess stand. You're not now getting triggered, but like in the past, then you'd be rude to them, but it's not proportionate, or them not making eye contact. It's something deeper within you that you're bringing to the table.
Exactly. So that's the reactive anger. And then everything else in my book is the valid anger, is the healthy anger. So again, like my husband not listening, that's valid. If we've been married for 30 years and he's still doing a really poor job listening, that's a lot of anger and it might feel out of control. And maybe the reason it feels out of control is I haven't really given it words. I haven't done a good job in expressing it. Maybe that's why, because I've just been stuffing it. That might be one reason that it feels so out of control. It might feel out of control because he says that he's doing a better job and he's listening, but he's not. And so it's not actually true. And so that's invalidating. It might feel out of control because he's gaslighting me. And that's valid. That anger is valid anger.
How do you distinguish between the two? Because I can see people saying, well, that's valid, that's valid, that's valid, especially with couples that are coming in, right? You're supposed to listen to me. You're supposed to do these things, not repeat patterns that I've asked you not to do. That's valid anger.
That is valid.
When do you know it's reactive anger?
In my relationship with my husband, there was both. There was my own reactive anger from my childhood. And when I did my integration work around that, that helped me. Like my husband isn't good with eye contact to this day, but I've learned like he is listening. He's just not making eye contact, right? So I have to do that work on my end when he's looking away while I'm talking to say, Brownwyn, he's listening. And then that works. So I'm doing my work. But if he's not listening, I get to be angry. Now, I do need to be responsible with my anger by saying it, by saying, hey, Steve, what's going on? We've talked about like when you're on your phone, you aren't a good listener. And right now I see that you are on your phone when I really need you to be listening. That's me being responsible with my anger, naming it.
Mm-hmm.
If he changes course and he apologizes, I'll say, okay, my anger's gone. Let's try it again. Emotions are there to move us. That's why the word is emotion. They're there to elicit motion. They're there to move us. So my anger needs to be moved through me, channeled out through words, through accountability, through assertive speech, through boundaries. If it's happening over and over and over, and he's not making any kind of serious progress and he's claiming to, I might need a really big boundary. Like, hey, I don't think this marriage is working. I'm going to be honest. And I've said that to him and we have worked through that, but that can happen and that will need to happen. An ultimatum can be like a lifesaver.
Okay. Here's what I'm hearing all of my couples in my head that
Yeah.
say, I have tried to assert myself and set a boundary. And so then I get elevated. They're not listening. So then I raise my voice and then I get intense. Tell me about that. Is that valid anger or is that dysregulate? Like, where is the line?
This is so nuanced. I love that you're asking this. It's so human. I will say if that is happening, now me, the person who's getting angry at the partner who's not listening, is having false hope that he will listen. Okay. So that's a me problem that I have false hope now that I should need to raise my voice. That's ridiculous. That this person needs me to get this angry in order to listen. What's wrong with me that I keep thinking there's hope for this becoming healthy at some point because there's not.
Ooh, this is deep. You are the first person named false hope. So I'm hoping you're going to get this because I've told you so many times, but you still aren't. So I'm holding on to false hope. How do we know we're holding on to false hope? What are the signs that we're holding on to false hope?
Well, I would say, first of all, if you have to get that angry to be heard, even if once in a while, once in a blue moon, it works, that's false hope because that's very sick. It's very sick that we're in a relationship with a partner. A partner's job description, our job description is to listen. That's like rule number one. We listen to each other. I've told this to my husband, like, if we're married and you're not listening, what's the point? Why am I not single? Because that's like the number one reason I'm married is to have someone who hears me. Are you going to hear me perfectly? Sure. No. I need to have realistic expectations. I can say, hey, is now a good time? Oh no, the game's on. I want to watch the game. Sure. Okay. Let's make a time later. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect. But if it is so inconsistent that when I have something that, first of all, I matter, I have to know that I matter. I don't need my partner to prove to me that I matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's not healthy. I need to know in my core that I matter. And if he continues to act like I don't matter, then there is a big problem and I have false hope.
Okay. Because I love this. Like people listening are like, this is real life. Let's say I don't feel heard right now and they get triggered by that. So let's say the partner goes, I am listening. I am hearing you. Because this is what happens in couples therapy. I do listen. I am hearing you. They get defensive and they start kind of feeling angry because they don't feel seen. And now we've triggered each other's wounds unconsciously.
Yeah.
Now we're both angry.
Yes, we are. However, if a partner is saying, I am listening, he has so much shame that he can't receive any kind of critical feedback.
Yes.
I would say there's false hope there. There is false hope if we have a partner that we think will fit the job description of a partner that can't take in any mildly critical feedback that can't be wrong. That's false hope.
So what does someone do with that? Because I see this all the time, like so much shame. Everybody's got shame. But let's say every feedback we give, and let's say we're saying it in a centered way, like I don't feel heard right now or whatever they're saying, or I feel sad because I don't feel heard and I really want to connect with you. So let's say they do get, because of their shame, defensive and dysregulated. Then what? Now we set the boundary and that might look like an ultimatum.
In my book, that would definitely necessitate an
Okay,
ultimatum.
you're
because
clear. That's an ultimatum.
that's way too much shame. That is an unhealthy level of shame for
Okay.
someone to have if they cannot receive any kind of constructive feedback.
Do you see that often where someone cannot have much feedback?
I don't work
Yeah.
with couples, so
Okay.
I don't anymore, but my clients have people in their lives like that. And I say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing with these people? Like, there's no hope. That's false hope.
Do you feel like that is a mirror? Someone prominent in their life could be a parent, mom, dad, somebody that was in their life that's a familiar pattern to them. Their parent was filled with
Absolutely.
shame okay, let's dive into that.
Okay, so you're saying if I have a female client who's like, I can't even say this
Yeah,
to my
female or male,
partner.
doesn't matter. Like, yeah, they can't
Okay.
say how they say, "I
Mhm.
feel unseen or unheard right now," when you're on your phone. I'm making this up, but they make a request. Would you be
Yeah.
willing to put your phone down? They're like, "You always are mad at me and you think
Mhm.
I'm never doing anything right." And they
Mhm.
respond pretty quickly with defense because of their own shame.
Yeah,
Does
reactive
that
anger. Mhm.
reactive anger, does that unconsciously is that a familiar pattern to the person that's in that relationship based on their childhood?
So you're saying that they had a parent like
Yes.
this.
They had a parent that couldn't
Absolutely.
take feedback, that couldn't own anything, that wasn't insightful.
100%. And I would say the problem there at that juncture isn't the partner, it's this person who still doesn't 100% know or believe that they matter.
Okay, so the person in the relationship that's tolerating this
Yes.
doesn't know they matter.
Not 100%. They haven't appropriated that. And then I would take it back to they haven't fully differentiated from that parent, or else they wouldn't be in this level of dysfunctional relationship.
I love differentiation. Let's say someone's never heard that term. What does that mean? And how do they differentiate?
I would say, as a therapist, differentiation is the most important thing for our mental health, for our physical health, for our wholeness as humans. I mean, there's nothing more important in our lives. And differentiation from our parents, we all need to do. However, it's not simple. It's not like moving away. You could move away and still be undifferentiated from that parent. There's plenty of people who move across the country, they think they're differentiating and they want to differentiate, but that's not enough. Differentiation is more deep, it's more spiritual, even in that if I still hold in my psyche the truths that were taught to me by this parent that are actually not true, I am not fully differentiated. So if I still believe at some level I don't matter, I could cut off the parent and live around the world, but I am not fully differentiated because I haven't reversed course on what matters and learned that I do matter.
Okay, so where does someone to begin to differentiate? Like, how do we differentiate? If someone's like, I kind of resemble that. I tried to move, or I tried to just kind of set more boundaries.
That's not
And
enough. The good news is that it's not easy, but it's not that hard either. In that, what we need to do is we need to give the parent back the shame that they gave us.
how do
So
we do
we
that?
we need to revisit our childhood. And again, this is in therapy. This isn't so hard because every time we're triggered in the present adult life, it goes back usually to a trigger we learned from our parent, from shame that we caught from them, that we were given from them. So if you want to use the example of my eye contact thing, like I feel shame. I feel like I don't matter when someone's not making eye contact.
Mhm.
That's what my mother taught me because she made no eye contact with me. And I have learned I have to go back to little Brownwyn. I have to picture her in my mind's eye at age 3. I have to see how her mom emotionally neglected her. And I have to say, hey, little Brownwyn, that's not your shame. That's hers. So let's put it all in a cardboard
Mhm.
box right now and give it back to her. And I need you, little Brownwyn, to see that you matter to me. You matter to me. Maybe you don't matter to her, but you do to me. And I see your goodness. And I give you my love, my acceptance, my
Mm,
approval. We have to do that for ourselves.
yes.
That's how we become whole.
That's beautiful. And let's say they feel like, with your example, they say, I don't know how to do that for myself. You walk through people in therapy, but let's say someone's listening, they go, how do I do that for myself? I struggle because that voice in my head criticizes me or tells me how I'm not good enough. And so it's hard to access the adult me.
So that voice in our head is shame. I've had debilitating shame in my life to the point where the voice in my head was like demonic. It was so evil. And it was very interesting because I didn't have that lifelong. I had that for maybe like an 8-9 year span when I was severely depressed. And so I know the difference too, which is interesting. A lot of people have nothing but that experience, but I look back and that was during the time I had so much shame. Shame always comes from other people. Children are not born into the world with shame. It is not native. We are born in the world with anger and emotions that are designed to move us. But shame is not an emotion. It's not there to move us. It's there to debilitate, to make us stuck, to destroy us, really. And shame comes from mainly parents, but then from other people later in our lives.
So how do we work through that? Like, how does someone begin to heal that?
Yeah, like the example I gave you, where I go to little Brownwyn, it's just in my imagination, in my mind's eye, I picture her. I call those integration exercises where we integrate with our inner child. Those will save our life. And they are very practical and we can do them in like 60, 120 seconds max. I mean, they're very quick. And so once we start showing up for ourselves, once we start paying attention to ourselves when we're triggered and saying, hey, I matter, I'm going to like sit aside for 5 minutes and help myself right now and integrate with myself and help me figure out where this shame is coming from because I matter. So in essence, when we treat ourselves like we matter, we actually start to matter.
Okay. So someone says, I want to start differentiating. Where does anger play into differentiation? Like, how do they tie together? Because we know how shame does, but where does anger come in to play?
Yes. In order to differentiate from our parents, we need to feel angry at them. And so when we give back the shame, this is the crazy thing. When we still have the shame, it's very hard to access the anger. We're so debilitated. But I find with my clients, when I lead them in these integration exercises, once they give them back the shame, the next thing that happens is they're feeling the anger in their body. And so we have to express it out of our bodies. We don't have to do that with the parent. I mean, a lot of our parents are deceased. By the way, if you have a deceased parent, it doesn't mean you're differentiated. Okay. So that has nothing to do with it.
That's key. Doesn't mean it, even if they're deceased, that you're differentiated.
Because those lies are still living in your body. Yes. So you are still not differentiated. So we don't have to address the parent. Even if we have a living parent, most likely we can't address them and share our anger because they're not going to listen. They refuse to listen. So I don't advise that. I have one parent who's deceased. My dad is still alive. So I'll give you an example. I gave him back his shame in my imagination in an exercise I did. And then I started to feel my anger. And what I did is I documented on a Google Doc over time, probably over several months, all these memories because my brain would hold a memory, but never more than one at a time. But I'd have different memories come and go. And I said, oh, I need to write these down to have like a more exhaustive list so I could really see it. And once I started writing it down for myself, I'm like, oh, there's so many horrible things. I had to look at that document to really see them all at once. And so then I started listing some of those things, emailing him to hold him accountable. And I said, what I'm going to need moving forward is for you to own all this and apologize and become a safe person because you're not safe. And if you don't do this, we have nothing moving forward. Like there's no relationship. And he chose not to do any acknowledgement. And we have had no relationship for over 3 years now, which has been sad, but honest to God, I have never felt more whole, more healthy, more alive. I'm 55 years old and I had insomnia for 30 years, since age 20 to about age 50. It would come and go, but mostly stay. And I even was hospitalized at one point for such acute insomnia. When I started to hold him accountable and share these emails, my insomnia completely ameliorated. I sleep like a baby now. I can take naps. I'm off all the medication. It's been 5 years. I've never felt better in my life. So I believe for 30 years, my body was like, Bronwyn, wake up. and like rescue yourself from this very toxic man. And I ignored that for 30 years.
Wow, that's so powerful. So you wrote these emails and you put specific memories in there to hold them accountable. And you were like, this is it. You need to own this. You need to apologize because this is what people are afraid of. Well, they're not going to do it. They're not
Yeah.
going to
Oh, well.
apologize. And you were like unattached to needing that. Is that kind of, you were like, I'm doing it for me, regardless of what he does.
Yes. And the only way I could do that, however, was by giving him back all the shame, giving my mom back all her shame in my mind, doing that work for myself, getting to the point, giving myself my approval. Because here's the thing, until we give ourselves our acceptance and our approval, we will outsource that to our parent. And we will unconsciously be unable to sever that relationship should we need to, because we're still approval addicts. We still need that from them. Now, I will say, when my mom died, I didn't feel much of anything. I wasn't devastated because I had done the work. I was ready for that to happen. I see people who, when their parents die, they are absolutely devastated. They could see it coming for years and they're still devastated. And I'll tell you why. Because they never got the approval. They never fully appropriated or consolidated the approval that their inner child wanted and needed, and the parent died. And they feel this despair, they feel this rage, they feel this hatred of the parent. Sometimes they don't know what to do with. A lot of it's unconscious. I had complete peace when my mom died because I wasn't expecting something she wasn't going to give me. And when my father dies, I'll feel the same way. So when we give that to ourselves, when we give ourselves our approval, our attunement, our love, we are whole and we can finally give the parent the ultimatum.
So do you ask yourself, am I seeking my parents' approval? Like, how do you check that? Because I can see people going, well, I didn't think I was looking for their approval. How do we get a check on that, a pulse on that?
Yeah, well, I'll say, so you asked, is this partner a mirror of the parent? And I'll say, that's one way we're trying to appropriate the approval is picking an echo of the parent to finally consolidate that approval by getting it from someone like them, right? So that's proof right there.
Okay, just pause if you need to take this in because this is really powerful information. So let's say someone says, how do I know if it's my shame? All shame is from somebody else. Is that what you're saying? So this is really, I want to make this distinction very clear for people. Shame is I'm not good enough, I'm defective, something's wrong with me. Yeah. That is from somebody else. That's not us.
No, it's not native.
So that's the distinction. If you're in shame, you got to kind of peel back the onion and figure out where that came from.
Yeah. And I will say it's mostly from neglect, emotional neglect. It's not physical neglect, it's emotional neglect. And I want to say, Kristen, too, I'm a parent. We all emotionally neglect our children by accident. Okay. So we all fail our kids. We're all human. You might have a great parent who has a wonderful heart, but they had 2 babies in a row, which is like nearly impossible not to neglect one of them when we've got another one. There's just circumstantial things that make it too hard. I have a very toxic parent, but not everyone does. They had parents who really tried their best truly, but they still got the shame because emotional neglect is impossible to not do at some point as a parent.
So there's some clients that have a real hard time acknowledging. They'll come in and know I had a great childhood. They really struggle with naming the shame or naming what hurt them as a child. What do you say to those folks that really struggle with that because they don't want to make their parent bad?
Yeah, I would say it doesn't make them bad. It makes them human. I'm human. Like, again, I shamed my daughter. I will give you an example. When she was 5, now she's 22. So about 17 years ago, I fell into a very severe depressive episode. And she experienced my emotional neglect because anyone who has a parent who is depressed, it's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. So she went from having all kinds of wonderful emotional attunement from me to like 0. And because she's 5, because children are little narcissists, they think it's them. They don't have the objectivity to say, mom's really depressed. She can't give me what I need. She can't do that. Kids just always think, oh, it's me. I'm not enough, right? So they appropriate that shame. That is how children view themselves. That's how they view the world. Because she appropriated that shame, even though she wasn't shameful, she didn't do anything wrong, we had a very conflictual relationship for the next 14 years, honestly. And it wasn't until she was 19-ish and I started putting the pieces together.
Mm.
Oh, I think I know what happened when she was 5. I think I know what I need to do. What I did is I wrote her a letter, and it was called Dear 5-Year-Old Edie, where I apologized. And I said, I need you, little Edie, to see that the shame you feel for my neglect is mine and not yours. So let's put it all in this cardboard box, and I'm going to take it from you and I'll dispose of it for you, but it's not yours. It's mine. This is another miraculous story because when I did that for 14 years, from age 5 till age 19, she had had almost daily headaches and stomach aches. I mean, every other day, maybe. And sometimes she couldn't go to school. They were so intense. She
Wow.
also had very severe anxiety. When she read that letter, when we talked through this, both of those, these somatic issues and the anxiety, completely stopped. I mean, 100%. It's been 3 years now. She has no more stomach aches, no more headaches, no more anxiety. And we healed our relationship because I validated her anger. I said, you get to be angry at me. It wasn't my fault because I was depressed. However, I could have told you. I could have said, Edie, I'm depressed. Mommy's not doing well. I'm so sorry. I could have done a better job, and you get to be angry at the mom you didn't have. So it's not rational. Like, it's not about blame. It's just about validating her anger. Of course, she felt angry. And so we've healed our relationship as well.
I love this so much. Have you seen this with other people that they've written letters to their kids? Because this is really powerful because you did a repair.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Have you seen this
Yeah.
work for other people?
Yes. I have one client in particular. She came to therapy. She's older than me. She's in her 60s, late 60s. And she came to therapy just to heal her relationship with her daughter. And she did all this work. And she and her daughter are just so close now. And her daughter is so just doing better in life because she has this secure attachment to her mom because she's been able to dislodge all of her shame. I mean, it is so beautiful. It is a win-win.
It is. And this is what I say to people when you can own your stuff, not shaming yourself, it's ownership, that's empowerment. You will
Yes.
shift all the relationships within yourself and in your life. That's why defensiveness is primitive, I feel like. It's very young. Do you feel like that? All the defensiveness we have?
Well, defensiveness comes from shame. So you're right. And I have
Yeah.
the choice. So, Kristen, I could have shame about how I neglected her, but that is my choice to say, I'm not going to feel shame. I'm going to feel regret. Regret means I'm human and I made a mistake, and we all make mistakes. But shame says, oh, I'm not human. I have to be like a perfect robot and do everything perfectly. Shame has unrealistic expectations on ourselves.
I love that. I have to write this down because it's so good. Shame has unrealistic
Yeah.
expectations on ourselves.
That we're not human, that we have to be all good, that we can't make flaws. The most beautiful thing about being human is that humans make so many mistakes, and we can, if we don't have shame, we can learn from those mistakes and we can grow. And that makes us beautiful. If we don't have that mindset, if we have an all or nothing, I'm either all good or I'm all bad, shame-based mindset, we're never going to grow. We're never going to learn.
Do you feel like right, wrong thinking is also shame-based?
Any kind
Good,
of like
bad, right,
black or
wrong. Yeah,
white.
that black
Yeah.
or white is all shame-based. I want to go back to differentiation because you said that's the key, and I agree with you. Okay, because people are learning about differentiation, and how does someone know if they're differentiated? Like some people are like, I don't know if I am or not. Like, how do you know?
That's a great question. I would say if you don't have shame, and very, very, very few people have no shame.
You just took it like a whoa. If you have no shame, you think that's differentiation.
Yeah. But it's 100% possible. Like, it sounds impossible. It's not. Because every time we're triggered in the present, instead of seeing some trigger as something to avoid or some reason to judge ourselves, if we see that trigger as an opportunity to go back to an early memory where that shame got deposited and do the work and give that shame in our mind's eye back to the parent or back to the bully, or could be a sibling who bullied us, as we give that shame back, we're going to be shame free. And every time we do that, we're moving more and more towards wholeness.
Okay. So giving the shame back, you said it throughout the podcast, is the key to differentiation. Just if I synthesize this. So if you start working with that shame and you start giving it back, you're moving towards differentiation and finding your own worth, your own value. This is the thesis of what we're saying.
Yeah. And along those lines, so I love this term. I started adopting it called self-attachment, where we attach to ourselves. So our attachment figures, our parents, differentiation means attaching to ourselves. Now we have self-attachment. So they're free to die, which they're going to hopefully die before us. They're free to give up hope on them for giving us the approval, seeing our goodness. We're giving that to ourselves. We're self-attaching.
So we're no longer seeking their approval. I mean, because this is huge. Okay.
Yeah. So the way I see it is, I'm not looking for approval from a parent at this point, but I love getting my husband's where he's like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I love to hear that. But as much as I love it, I don't need it.
Yeah.
Right. So I say anyone
It's
who's
icing on the
fortunate
cake.
enough, anyone who's fortunate enough to be in my life is a bonus now because I have me and I'm complete.
Yes. And then where does anger play into that?
Yeah. So anger now at this point in my life, I just channel it into assertiveness or boundaries. So I'll give you another example. We have a tenant that we rent a unit to who she just made me angry too much, crossed a line. And I just said, you know what? I think you need to find a different place to live. You have 60 days. So that's an example of my anger. Now, it took a while to get there because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Of course we do. But there's a line. And then I'm like, you're out. Good luck finding another place this nice.
You felt secure in being assertive and setting that boundary.
Yes.
So that's a key because people are like, oh, and then they're like, oh, they're going to be upset with me and they're going to be mad at me.
Yes. And so that's the thing. We have to be okay. Oh, this is good. We have to be okay with other people's anger in order to be true to ourselves. And so what we need to do is we need to realize I'm actually not responsible for her feelings. I am responsible for my feelings. I am responsible to her, but never for her. And that is what we need to everyone else. We are responsible to people, but we are never responsible for them. And if I believe I am responsible for someone else, I cannot be responsible for myself. It's an either or.
Okay, what about parenting young kids?
We're not responsible for them. We are responsible to them. And when we live out this natural, universal law and these parameters, it gives us freedom. I've actually spoken to parents of young children, mothers of young children a few years ago, and this gives us so much freedom because if let's say I have a child who won't stop crying, like a baby who won't stop crying, I'm responsible to her. I'm not responsible for her. So once I do everything I can in my gamut of what I can do, feed her, that's not enough. She's still crying. I'm holding her. I'm rocking her. I'm changing her. I'm doing everything I can on my end. If she's still crying, there's nothing more I can do. And I'm living within that universal boundary saying, you're not responsible for her. You're responsible to her. You have been fully responsible to her. And now maybe it's time just to let her cry because you need to be responsible for you and you're about to lose it because you haven't slept in, X amount of time, right? So we have to live that out. That allows us to be full and complete parents. We're not functioning from a place of wholeness if we don't live within these parameters.
This could scare people because they're like, ooh, I feel like I have to caretake my kid. But that's not what you're saying. I can hear people misinterpreting this.
Well, I will say if we want to flip it over and look at the danger of feeling responsible for our children, that happens all the time. So I'll tell you what, if I'm out in public and my toddler is having a tantrum and I feel responsible for her, which I'm not, I might wallop her. I might hurt her because now she's bringing me shame.
Yes.
But that's actually not true because I'm not responsible for her. I don't care if everyone's looking at her and maybe looking at me and going, what a horrible parent. That's actually not true. I'm not a horrible parent because I'm only responsible for me. She is only responsible for her. And so when I live within those parameters, I'm like, okay, cry away. I'm not going to tempted to hurt you anymore because that's not my shame.
Yeah, that's a really good example because I think we are mired in what people think of us. Because
absolutely.
we don't feel whole. We don't feel good enough. So we are mired in, well, they're going to be mad at me. They're going to think less of me. They're going to think I'm a bad parent. They're going to think, I mean, we have people go down the rabbit hole of this. It's real. So how do we deal with that? Like, how do we work through that?
Yeah.
What people
we do that
think.
work. We dislodge the shame. It's really that simple.
We give the shame back.
Yeah. So if that were me right now, if with a toddler crying and I was tempted to feel ashamed, which I would because I'm human, I would do the same thing I did with the hostess. I would say, that's her shame. That's not my shame. I would just say it in my mind. I'd let people gawk, whatever they want. If they want to judge, go for it. It's not my shame. So I would mentally fight that. And then I would be able to be kind to this little toddler when I wouldn't be able to be kind to her if I feel like that's my shame.
Yeah. Shame's dominant. Shame runs the show sometimes if we don't notice it, acknowledge it. I can see the work you've done with assertiveness. I can feel that from you. Like it's assertiveness. Like you've done a lot of work around that. You've named, like, I can feel that when I'm talking to you. So yeah, I think that work has come across. And I think that other people felt that on the last podcast and got like some bravery to speak up and say things because they felt that from you. You were giving them permission to do that.
Yes.
Sometimes we need to hear that from somebody else to go, oh, that's okay for you to do with that anger. Not get dysregulated and yell and scream. That's not what you're saying.
Right.
But that's part of the differentiation process, correct? I mean, that's part of how we differentiate.
Yeah. I mean, if you're saying I'm a model, that is, thank you, first of all. That is very encouraging. But we do need that modeled for us. That's what, if we could get to this point where we're this healthy, we can model that for our children.
Yes.
And then they can model it for their children. So yes, we do all need that modeled.
And you're voicing it. When you say name it, it's voicing it. People are so afraid to voice things because they're afraid the other person's going to get upset and they're going to get dysregulated. And what's the point? And I don't want to start something and it's just going to start a fight. I mean, this is what I hear. So I just don't say anything. What do you say to someone like that?
You know what I will say, Kristen? This is what I say to when I spoke to the moms of young children. I said that the child's job description is to disappoint the hell out of the parent. And the parent's job description is to be responsible for that disappointment and not make the child be responsible for that disappointment. So when we raise children who are able to disappoint us and know that they are still loved by us, we're going to create some powerful human beings that are going to be able to walk away from the abusive boss, to walk away from the abusive partner, to say, you know what, I matter and so sorry to disappoint, by the way. That is powerful. And we can be those people. We can say, I'm so sorry to disappoint, but I'm responsible for my feelings, not yours.
So you're saying befriend disappointment in a way so you can have a voice.
Yes.
And not make our children responsible, like them feeling like a disappointment because that's shame. We take that on. But what you're saying is, how can people find their voice? That's, I guess, the better question.
When we give ourselves our approval, when we say, you know what, Brownwyn, you got me. I'm not going to abandon you. I promise. I know I have in the past, and I'm very, very sorry. I was a fool. But from here on out, I commit to never neglecting you emotionally, never leaving you again. You have my approval. You will have it until the day you leave this earth. Nothing can ever detract from that. I will be on the front row seat of your life. I will be your super fan, always cheering you on. When we do that for ourselves, we don't need other people's approval. We are finally free to disappoint them.
And so therefore you can be assertive and not afraid of, I'm going to start a fight. They're going to get upset with me. They're going to get mad at me. Why rock the boat? I mean, it's not worth it. At that point, you're like, that I'm worth it. So therefore, I will say something in a clear and direct way. Clear is kind. And I'm not going to avoid, suppress, repress, withdraw, move away from, shut down. I'm going to lean in. Like that's differentiation.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Because I know this is a big thing for people. They're so afraid to say something. I'm like, well, did you tell them? Well, no, because they're going to get angry and they're going to get mad at me and they're going to, and I don't want to start something. So this is what we're debunking. Like, this is where the work really comes in. Because then you're, like you said, you're modeling what that looks like for your kids if you have, or other people in your life.
Yes.
And you give them then the freedom to do the same in a healthy way.
Exactly.
So many family systems just passive aggressively do life or aggressively. And we didn't learn this. So it's like relearning how to reconnect with self and love yourself to be able to do that.
And the irony is, as you love yourself, you are more loving to others. You are more full and whole to them. So it's a win-win.
Yes. And that false hope was so good because I think if you keep doing this and nothing changes, that's an evaluation for yourself. Like, okay, I might need to make a change then. That's kind of what I heard you say.
Yes.
That I'm just holding on to hope and it's not ever changing. So therefore, I'm going to have to do something different, which might mean boundaries or end a relationship.
It means we're outsourcing our worth to someone else instead of giving that to ourselves ultimately.
Very good. Is there anything we did not cover that you felt was important?
We covered so much.
Like, here, there, and everywhere, but it was so good.
Yeah, it was really fun. Well, yeah, I just want to encourage people. So my podcast, I walk through integration exercises where people can do this for themselves. I also have now a website where I train other therapists to do integration exercises on their clients and on themselves because we therapists need to do the work ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I provide continuing education for therapists to do that as well. So that my website is integrateanger.com, one word.
Okay. And we'll put it in the show notes and we'll put your podcast in the show notes as well. Okay. One last question. What has been the most life-changing book? And I know that's a big question. So whatever floats in for you.
Well, I will say I really loved, what is it called by Glennon Doyle?
Untamed.
Untamed. Yeah, I really did. Especially the beginning where she's kind of at the zoo and she sees that, I don't remember if it was a tiger or a cheetah, but it was made to believe, it was raised to think it was like golden retriever or something. And it doesn't realize it's actually a cheetah. And she relates to that. And she's like, I'm a cheetah. It was so cool. So yeah, I really like that book.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. So, and then we'll link your book in the show notes too.
Okay. I don't have a book. I just have the podcast.
Okay. I thought you had a book. Why did
I do have a book, but it's from many years ago when my career was actually in nutrition. So.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. Yeah. Okay. I love it. Okay, great. I so loved our conversation. Thank you so much. And for the work you're doing in the world and modeling what it looks like to be differentiated and assertive, but clear and direct, and channeling your anger into naming it and claiming it. So I appreciate you and what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks for having me again on the podcast.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening to the Close the Chapter podcast. My hope is that you took home some actionable steps along with motivation, inspiration, and hope for making sustainable change in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button to be sure to get the updated episodes every week and share with a friend or a family member. For more information about how to get connected, visit Kristen, Kristen, Boyce, Boice.com. Thanks and have a great day.